Yeah, so Six Flyers is a travel agency in the travel and tourism industry in Canada. It was established in the year 2018 with the aim of expanding to the rest of the world. We have about 60 employees and a customer base of 3,000 and an annual revenue of $8 to $9 million. Our portal gives you the direct access to one of the broadest selections of travel deals. Our customers are our top priority, and we offer everything needed for researching, planning, and purchasing a whole trip. Slide 2. Our services includes all international and domestic airlines. We have visa support services in over 20 countries globally. We have the global travel insurance services. We have hotel bookings. We have car rentals and whatnot. Our vision as a company is to be our customers' indispensable and trusted travel companion. Our mission is to make planning, payment, and travel seamless and enjoyable by building a world-class travel system manned by experienced customer-friendly travel experts. Slide 3. Our core value as a company, number one is integrity, transparency, and honesty. And lastly, I'm going to be talking about the market leaders we have in the travel and tourism industry in Canada. We have the Trivago, we have Kayak, we have TripAdvisor. Trivago taking about 30% of the market share, Kayak taking about 25%, and TripAdvisor taking about 25% also, while we at Six Flyers still have just about 2%, which we are still working on. So I'm going to stop here, and Lolade will take off from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Aniela. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lolade. While acknowledging where we are as a business, we know that we need to focus on expanding and growing also as a business. Because of this, we talked to a couple of stakeholders in-house, and we also spoke to a focus group that represented that is a representation of our client base, and we're able to identify some pain points that would be issues for us in our expansion plans. One of such pain points that we identified was low turnover in case resolution. Clients reach out to us when they have issues, but we realize that we are not able to resolve their case in a timely manner, and this affects us being able to serve our customers the way that we would want to serve them. Some of these problems are internal and can be resolved just by us looking at ourselves and finding a way to just resolve these cases. Some are beyond our control, but majority of it is within our control. And we know that if we do better, we would be able to resolve these cases faster for our customer satisfaction. Another pain point that we identified was standard operating process. Right now at Six Flyers, we do not have a standard operating process of how things should run. Every unit handles their activities in the way that they want, and irrespective of even handling it the way they want, individuals in that unit also handle it the way they want. We do not have a standard process for attending to customers, doing what every process that you can think about basically. We do not have a standard way to deal with these issues, and we saw that, and we identified that this is a problem for us because we need to be able to provide the same quality of service across board. Another pain point that we identified is difficulty in measuring ROI. We have all these investments that has happened, and we need to be able to, obviously, to be able to grow as a business, we would need some funding. And to be able to convince investors that they should invest with us, we need to be able to properly measure return on investments currently and even in the future. Right now, we're not able to do this. We do not have a system to be able to measure return on investments, and it makes it difficult to be able to ask investors for funds, and it's going to make it difficult also when we even get to that stage to be able to ask investors for funds. Another pain point that we identified is poor data management. We have data that is sourced from everywhere, and even all these leads that we can add to opportunities, we're not able to do so because we're not managing our data properly. Everybody knows that data is key, and to be able to grow well and to be able to grow as a company, data is really important to be able to also make informed decisions. We're not managing our data properly, and we identify that this is a pain point for us. And going forward, if we want to get to that point we want to get to, we would need to be able to utilize the data that we have and also use it properly to make the decisions that we need to make. Another pain point that we identified is team collaboration. It was fine when we were just five people in the company, but as the company grew and as employees also, as the staff strength also increased, we saw that we're not collaborating properly. We're not able to properly work as a team to be able to satisfy our customers. Now, even though the customers might not be able to identify that this is the cost, we know that in-house, if we're able to collaborate better, we would be able to serve our customers better. So this is a problem that we identified also. Another problem that we identified is loss of revenue. Now, this speaks to the fact that we sometimes, due to factors beyond our control, environmental, because we're in the aviation industry, take for instance, when COVID happened, there were some flights that had been booked and we were not able to satisfy this. So we needed to refund some of this back to customers. And we have loss of revenue from even different things make us lose money at different points. And sometimes we even need to refund to customers. All of these are things that we know that is a pain point, and we need to find ways to mitigate against it. I would pass it on to Emmanuel to speak more on the effect of this pain point and how it is affecting us as a business and how it would affect our growth in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lolade. It's been my pleasure, speaking to the fact that we've had a couple of effects regarding the pain points we've actually been having for quite some times now. And based on the number one pain point that was mentioned earlier by my colleague, as we can see, there's been a high customer churn rates over the course of the year when we started our business up until 2021. So as you can see from the chart in there, you can see that since 2018, basically we had about 3%, our churn rate at that point in time, but it grew over time up until 2021 to about 8%, which basically has actually affected our business. And the second one basically is all about, as a result of that, basically some customers are not satisfied with our services. And this has also, impacted our, our customer retention rate as well over the course of the year that we've been in business. The second pain point and the effect of that is basically there's been an inconsistency in the customer expectation from us. If we look at this over the course of the year, for instance, we can see that to retain customer, basically all travel agencies, or the hospitality business, basically they're expected to build up good services, right, and have a good standard as well. So, but unfortunately for us, we've not been able to, have a consistent customer service, standard as well. So, for instance, as a company, sometimes we do consider the fact that we recommended the best hotel to our customers. But again, we tend to overlook the quality of the car services, for instance, that the customer will be using during their stays. So on such peculiar grounds as well, our company is unable to also, maintain a uniform standard of service as well. And this has also impacted our customer loyalty over the course of the period we've been in business. So if you look at the chart as well regarding the ticket sales, you can see there has been a decline since the third quarter of 2021 up until the fourth quarter as well, and early this year and the second quarter of this 2022 as well. We've had a decline in sales as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of speaking to the difficulties in measuring the ROI, it's been difficult for us as well to basically have a real-time data in our system over the course of the year we've been in business. And this has resulted into the inability to make informed business decisions for us to go to the next level. And we also found out that we cannot exactly track our performance the way we should be as a business as well. So another thing that I would also like to mention, it's about the poor data management and the effect of that as well. Basically, if you look at the chart that we also have in there as well, you can see that we've been having, quite sometimes we've actually been having about 16% of duplicate data. And at the time as well, we had some incomplete data, about 11%. The missing data as well resulted into about 21% of that. And we also have some wrong format in the system, when capturing data as well, about 15%. But again, we have a very minimum amount of correct and accurate data in our systems. So, and this has basically resulted into a situation where we don't have an efficient, data optimization system, and also resulted into ill-informed, decision-making for us as a business. And I'd also like to mention the fact that, as you may all know, that sometimes some customer, they could call in, using a particular service. For instance, you could realize that some customers are basically trying to reach us as a business. Maybe it could be through the website application, they're trying to fill some information. Then at the same time as well, probably they are using the call services, right? So as a result of that, sometime as well, we realize that we're actually taking duplicate data in the system, which is not been able to allow us to optimize fully. And as a result, at the end of the day, we're having data losses. Next slide, please. So team collaboration is actually key, and but unfortunately for us as a business, we try as much as possible to work on that, but again, we are where we are right now as well. So, and this has resulted in an ability to track our leads, our potential customers, to the opportunity, and convert them to an account and contact, basically. Based on the fact that we're having issues with our team collaboration and all that as well, collaboration between different departments within the organization basically is also, has resulted into us being able to, have a delay in time to market our product to the customers. And at the end of the day, we've basically been having some kind of like negative team morale within the organization. And lastly, loss of revenue is basically, we all know is very, very important in every organization. And we are basically in the business of hospitality and travel. But unfortunately, we're trying to see what we can do to increase that. But right now, we risk the opportunity of being, running into bankruptcy, which we don't want to run out of business at the end of the day. So it's very difficult for us as well to be able to meet our financial obligations with our customers as well. And our reputation is basically at risk at this point in time. So, and if I may conclude, as a startup company, we are currently focusing on our current pain points and the impact to our business at this point in time. But however, we will be working on how to make Six Flags company organization to the next level, to move them to the next level in the nearest future. Thank you very much.
Well done, team. Very well done. As usual, we're going to be sharing feedback, and I'm sure you're expecting it. So I'm going to throw it open to the entire class first to share the feedback, and then I'll share mine. Okay, so do we have any takers? Does anybody want to share feedback? Class, we all can't be quiet. Are you saying they did so terribly you can't even say they did good? I mean, Ola, go for it, please.
Okay, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, well done for your presentation, for the quality and the brevity of your presentation material. I think that's a plus. Just a couple of things that I noticed. You've got to be consistent in applying technical terms. I think in one of the slides you said customer turnover, and then in another slide you said churn rate. I assume you're both trying to portray this, to provide the same message, but using the same term, and particularly using the technical term that is applicable in that industry is, I think, is a good idea. And then, I think there was a bit of repetition, and repetition in itself is not bad. However, every single time you repeat, there has to be incremental new knowledge or new data being, provided. If you're basically just saying the same thing over and over again, then, the chances are you're going to lose your audience. And then thirdly, I think I gave this feedback yesterday that it's not enough just to say something is wrong or data is missing. You've got to be able to also articulate the business impact. Missing data, therefore we're unable to, budget, we're unable to forecast demand, we're unable to, acquire the inadequate level of raw materials, stuff like that. You can't just say something is wrong. Why is it wrong, and how does it affect the business? And you have to, and same thing. And then, there was this instances where you said that, I guess maybe the team morale was low or something to that effect. An application cannot control or cannot resolve an issue with team morale. However, an application can help to address an issue with diminished productivity due to an obsolete process or an obsolete system. So those are the kind of stuff we sort of need to start looking out for, that and if information or data in itself is of no use, is of no value, except, you can tie it to a process, you can tie it to a system, and then you take it to tie it into what's the business impact. Those are the critical things that I guess we all need to look out for when we're putting together a presentation.
Thank you, Ola, for that. Group 5, I hope that made sense. If you have any questions about anything Ola said, feel free to respond to it. Does any other person want to give some feedback to Group 5? The class is very quiet today, and I'm trying to understand why.
Hi, Abiola. Sorry, this is Odi.
Oh, hi, Odi. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I just want to mention that their slides was clean and okay and well introduced, just for us to understand what the business is into. I think that was quite impressive for me. And also the confidence level is very okay, at least based on how the past groups have also presented. And they stopped opening up their cameras. I think that's a plus, as Abiola had always wanted. So that's just the feedback from me. The transition was good. And just so that they also take note of what Ola has mentioned, just to be better in subsequent projects. But the good sides are what I've mentioned, and I think that it's commendable. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Odi. Odi, quick question for you. You're
Yes.
the one who, it's like 2 a.m. where you are, right?
Yes.
Is that you?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for hanging in there. I know how difficult it can be. By 9 p.m. my time, I'm struggling to stay awake on those days. So well done. And well done to everybody as well, especially if you're in a time zone where it's really late, or maybe it's not even late, but you've had a really long day and you're still hanging in there doing your presentation. Well done, guys. I know it's a lot, but I'm hopeful that you would reap the rewards that you're aiming to reap. Awesome. Shola?
Thank you, Abiola. I think Odi kind of touched on what I wanted to say. It's a clean slide, and I'll just add to the fact that it was a good effort that they tried to use charts and some numbers to buttress their point. I think that is good. So I just saw the positives that I wanted to touch on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Shola. Stella?
Thank you, Abiola, and thank you to Group 5. It was you guys did an awesome job there with that presentation. I also noticed that the slides were clean, and I am not really sure. I stand to be corrected. I think group 5 is the only group, while introducing their company, they mentioned the mission and the vision statement of the company. I think I will give I don't know how, I can't remember, but I think I spotted that with most group. I did not see mission and vision statement. And that's a plus for you, because no matter whatever objective or whatever solutions you are trying to drive, it must match with the mission and the vision statement of an organization. If it doesn't, I don't think any board of directors will want to buy your idea. So good job with that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback you shared, Stella. So again, before I give my feedback, does any other person want to share feedback? Anybody? Okay. So if there's no other feedback, group 5, I just wanted to say well done. I thought that was a really well done presentation. You introduced your company really well. Okay, one other thing that you did in addition to what Stella mentioned, yes, you did your vision and mission. And like Stella said, I can't recall if any other group did that. For the other groups, if you did not, of course, you'd always have an opportunity to do it. But that was a really good idea. But one other thing Group 5 did was they actually listed the names of the presenters. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who saw that.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it. Yeah.
So not only did they do like a good, they passed it off to the next person really well, but at the beginning of the presentation, we saw the names of who was going to be talking. And that was really good. The other thing you did, which I liked, was that you listed your points and you told your story, right? So your slide wasn't too heavy and it was easy to read and follow, right? The only thing I would say to that, as much as that was a good idea, and this is going to you specifically, Eniola, I felt you were reading a bit. It appeared to me, and I may be wrong, that you were reading the text on the slide. What a better approach would be to understand the points on your slide and speak your story. If you know the points really well, and as you develop your level of comfort, it is a journey, no judgments at all. I'm just saying it is something to watch out for. The goal of as a matter of fact, when you start working as a BA, oftentimes you may even share the PowerPoint before the actual presentation. In some situations, they would have read it, so they're not looking for somebody to read it out to them. They're looking for that extra information that you haven't put in the slide, right? They'll follow your points and then you give them context. That's the idea behind you speaking. Otherwise, you just send them the slide and not bother booking a meeting with them, right? But when you book a meeting with them, you do not want to be reading off your slide. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is watch out for words like everywhere, different things. Those don't mean anything. When you were talking about the fact that, okay, you wanted to, currently you have your data in different systems, right? It's maybe 3 systems. You didn't quite mention how many, which is fine, right? But one of you used the word, the data is everywhere. That doesn't mean anything. And the point I'm trying to make is that as you get more comfortable talking like a BA and working as a BA, begin to use the actual terminologies that would have meaning to your audience. Know the BA lingo, the words that will make you come across as she really knows what she's talking about, or he really knows what he's talking about. And those are not words like the data is everywhere, or the issue is different things. That really doesn't tell us anything. So just watch out for them. Okay. When I looked at was it a pie chart you had? I think it was a pie chart, and I didn't understand the title. The title of that diagram was like percent sample, like the percent sign and sample. Can anybody tell me what that means?
Market share.
So why didn't you just say market share? Maybe I'm the one who misunderstood. Please let me know if I misunderstood it. But
yeah, I think the chat did not have a heading, if I can recall. But I know when he was explaining it, he was talking about the market share of different competitors.
right, can we go back to the chart? Can we show the pie chart, if you don't mind, please? Here, this diagram you have, what's that percent sample? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think basically we should have actually been, we've been able to, we should have been able to give it a valid title based on my own understanding actually, which I think was spotted right on. But again,
Okay.
yeah.
No, that's very. Oh, I think someone is talking.
I just want to chip in something. It was what we actually meant was like we had like a percentage sample of audits done on our data, and that was that's what we came out with, the quality of the data that we have. So it was like a percentage sample, not the entire population, just like a percentage sample that was used in the audit, and we came up with these results. That's
okay. So next time, the suggestion is put that title in there. If I come late to your meeting and this is the first slide I'm seeing, as a matter of fact, I didn't even come late to your meeting and I still couldn't quite figure out what that meant. So give it the actual title. If it's a percentage sample of a population of something, right? So that way whoever is reading it would know what you're talking about. I have one other comment here. Okay, yeah, the other thing I wanted to add is that I thought that not only did you talk about your pain point, you talked about the effect of the pain point. That was great. One thing you could add next time is to quantify it. And I think this partly ties into the point that Ola was making as well, right? Your audience for this type of presentation, I've said it, multiple times, right? They think in numbers. That's how they rose to that level. Okay, they think in numbers. So even though your slide was really great, you had good information in there, but there was not a lot of, you didn't quantify a lot of things. So if I wanted to give you $3 million to do something, I want to know that you're going to make me $5 million. But if you come to me and say, well, Abiola, invest $3 million in my company and your life is going to be better, you're going to be able to sleep longer, that has no meaning to me. What I want to hear is that if I give you $3 million, you're going to give me $5 million in 1 year. Again, that's just to give you context. I'm not saying use that actual example, right? But it does help to quantify, put a number to it. Okay. And then the one more thing that I liked is I liked that you told us what to expect. So you followed the guideline of the assignment. You didn't do more than what we asked for. You did what we asked for and you did it excellently. And then you told us what to expect. That was how you finished your presentation. And I thought that was really good. So overall, well done. I thought that was really good. Good presentation, very clear, point form. You all spoke really well. And I think that's my feedback in a nutshell. Okay, so now that
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now that we have all the groups have done their first presentation, I just want to hear from you. How are we feeling? How are we feeling generally about, presenting? What do we think? Yeah, go ahead, Ola.
Yeah, the risk of sounding, I don't want to be negative, and I certainly do not want to undermine anyone's confidence. But going off on my own experience is the fact that the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And in my experience, when you give a presentation, people are going to have questions, right? And you've got to be able to answer their questions without having to, start flipping through looking for, the answer to the question. It kind of tells everyone you're not prepared or you do not know your material. And let's not forget that it's supposed to be your material. It's supposed to be your knowledge that you're disseminating to a group of very powerful people. So you've got to get very comfortable in your own skin. You have to be able to relate with them, look them in the eye, maintain that gaze with them. And that's the way you sort of buy their confidence, right? And I know like this is the first iteration of, our presentation. We're probably still going to do a couple more. And certainly the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And I certainly wouldn't be, discouraged. I think, for me, I've gotten quite a lot of knowledge and material that I will put into practice as well. So I just want to encourage everybody that, look, you're definitely going to get better at it. No doubt about that.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you for that. Olaide.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say that, I didn't present anyways, but I just wanted to say that I believe that, like Ola said, it's like everybody will get better the more you practice. So, I mean, the first nerve is already broken. So the second will obviously be better because people will put in these corrections that we all had and then would make it better. And I'm sure we'll do you proud, Yola.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you for that, Olaide. And that's the goal of the whole thing. The presentations we did was not to highlight the fact that some people present really well and maybe other people don't present really well. No, like the impression I've always created, we are in this journey together. I was once in a BA class, and today presenting is second nature to me, right? I'm still not perfect. I'm still on that journey, but you all are, and there may be people in class that have been doing a lot of, presenting and all of that. But the point being, what we're doing, the goal here is for us to find out our strength, find out our weakness, capitalize on the strength, and improve on the weakness, right? So like Olaide and Ola have said, right, we're going to work towards improving. By the time you're done this training, I know you'd have done a minimum of 3 to 4 presentations, and there's no escaping it, really. And I know you're not even going to try to escape because you also want to get better at it, right? So that eventually when you get on the job, whether you're presenting to 3 people or 5, right, you feel a whole lot more confident than you feel today. And that's what I want to be able to help you with. Odi, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Abiola. I think I'm echoing.
No, it's okay. You're good.
Yeah, I think as a BA, we all know that you can't do without talking. Silence is not a skill of a BA. So everyone on this class should understand that being a BA, you have to be a good talker, a good communicator. Now, my feedback on the project we've done, it's just coming from the place of knowledge. For me to be better in my presentation, it must be that I know what I'm talking about. And in the past lessons, I've been struggling. Sometimes I'm dozing off because I'm not, keeping up with my time, but I have to just stretch out to listen to recordings and all that. Before I could present, I had to go back to my recordings so I can understand what I have to say. So it's a good plus learning from my colleagues and, picking up presentation styles and taking feedback from Abiola and the rest of the team as to get better. So it's a good practice. And for everyone that's not spoken, please, silence is not going to help, and hiding under your team is not going to help. So please, let's push ourselves as much as we can. I like to talk, and if I'm talking, I want to understand what I'm talking about before I can come out. So, and the last thing I wanted to say is, during presentation, based on what Abiola said, from the last group, telling you to go back to your slide. If you didn't do that from the place of knowledge, you would be shaking. You won't be able to, respond back. I've had a meeting like that as well, where I was told to go back to what I was talking about. If I didn't pull that up from my own knowledge, I would have been thrown off balance. So yes, thank you, Abiola, for, your hard work. And I believe we would get better as we progress. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Odi. And thanks to everyone. So now that we have, okay, someone said, how do you overcome shyness, fear when presenting as a BA? Abiola, that is an excellent question. I know of only one way, and that way is to continue practicing. The more you do it, the more you get better at it. I don't think there's any, magic that can be performed to just get over it like that. You have to keep presenting in front of people. As a matter of fact, present in front of your friends and your family. That way, at least look at the people you're familiar with, get comfortable doing that. And then the more, and bear in mind, right? Bear in mind, someone put a comment in the, I'll get to the comments in a bit. Bear in mind that as a BA, it's not like you're going to be presenting every day. No, that's not how it plays out in real life. From time to time, you would present, and then the data that you gathered, the information that you gathered, you go document and analyze it, and then you have a follow-up meeting. Sometimes it's not even going to be a presentation, it's just going to be a meeting where you're asking questions. So it's not like you're going to be presenting every other day. But on those occasions when you present, you want to be excellent at it, right? And the way to overcome that is just to keep practicing. That's the only thing I can recommend. Know your text. Practice in front of a mirror. Know it really well. If you know your text, that's half of the battle won, in my opinion. The other half is then, okay, am I a shy person? If I'm a shy person, I have to make extra effort in maintaining eye contact and talking, right? But things like reading from your slide, you want to get away from it. Things like looking above people's heads because you're trying to avoid eye contact, you don't want to do that. Someone said, is it okay to gesticulate? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, as long as you don't look like you're acting a movie, but you want to gesticulate, you don't want it to be too dramatic, so they're not distracted by that, but it's definitely okay to gesticulate. Okay, I'm going to get into the text in a bit. Yeah, okay. All right. So today we're going to start lesson 4. We stopped at lesson 3 in the last class where I taught, and today we're starting from here. I'll put it in PowerPoint in a slide format. So today we're going to be talking about what we call the SDLC, Software Development Life Cycle. We'll talk about the stages within the SDLC.
You're not sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm not. Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Let's see. Okay. You should be seeing it any minute. Please let me know once you can share.
We can.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So I'll start that over again. So lesson 4, we're going to be doing software development life cycle. As part of this lesson, we'll talk about the stages within the SDLC, methodologies used in SDLC, again, software development life cycle, and we'll talk about your role as a BA in software development life cycle. Okay, what's software development life cycle? It's basically the beginning to the end of the activities that occur when you're creating an application or a software. Okay, so it's a well-structured flow of phases, right? Each phase is defined when we're producing a software. The first phase is known as planning and analysis. Some people just call it analysis, right? It's basically the same. So we have the analysis phase, then we go into design. I'm going to go into more detail later. We go into design, we go into development, we go into testing, deployment, and maintenance. Under analysis, we have the product owner, project manager, business analyst, and you may have a few other. It depends on the organization, right? Sometimes it's just the BA doing the analysis part, right? Under design, which is more technical, you typically have the system architect. UX, UI means user experience and user interface, right? So when you're using your phone, all those applications you see that look really good, oftentimes they have a designer, like a UX UI designer, that would design that interface to make it look really good. Under development, we have sometimes front-end developers, back-end developers. The key here being that all these different roles listed under the different phases, your project may or may not have some of them. It depends on the size of the project, the complexity of the project, the type of requirements you're working with. But this is just to give you an idea. Now, when you look at all of these spaces, right, you see BA in only one, which is the analysis. Sometimes, depending on the project, the BA may be involved in testing as well, especially what is called user acceptance testing. Again, we'll get into the details of that later. Okay, now let's look at planning and analysis, which is the first phase of the software development lifecycle. In planning and analysis, the BA identifies like a chronological sequence of activities that need to be performed, okay? Who's going to be impacted by these activities? What is the timeline, the cost, and what does success look like? The planning part is more the PM, at least if you have a project manager on your project. The project manager oftentimes will do the planning. The BA will do the analysis, okay? The project manager makes sure that the goals, objectives, scope, risk, issues, budget, the time frame, and approach that's going to be followed have been well defined. That is a task the project manager should oversee. It really shouldn't fall with you, the BA, okay? The project manager is also the one who should be communicating all of this to the different stakeholders to get the agreement. So the project manager doesn't just sit in one room and start defining budget, issues, scope, and all of that, and agree to it all by himself or herself and take that as truth. No, the project manager will get input from stakeholders. They may pull you in as the BA to help them with gathering some of the information. Then the BA is the one who will engage stakeholders, trying to know what they need. You know, this new system we're building, what do you, manager of accounting, need to be able to do in the system? What is it that you do today as part of your work that you will need to keep doing in the future? Which means we need to make sure that the application we're implementing has the functionality for you to be able to do your work, okay? The business analyst doesn't just stop at what are the requirements today. The business analyst thinks, how can we make life better? The life that we have today, we don't just want to replicate it in the future. What can we improve in the new system? Okay? The BA also seeks to understand what is the definition of done. What does that mean? You gather requirements from your stakeholders, right? Your stakeholders need to let you know what it means for once those requirements are implemented, at what point will the stakeholder say, yes, you've delivered. This is what we want and you've delivered it. An example, let's break it down to like real life. Someone says, I am hungry and I need to eat, okay? For some people, food is the main meal. They eat the main meal, rice, chicken, salad, and all of that, they're good. For some other people, they go the whole 9 yards. They're going to need an appetizer, the main dish, and they're going to need dessert. If they don't eat chocolate or ice cream or something, their mind, in their brain, they've not had a full meal. For that person, the definition of done is appetizer, main meal, and the dessert. For somebody who's just used to eating the main dish and they're done, the definition of done is the main dish. When you gather requirements from the business, a follow-up question you need to ask, and sometimes they're not just going to say, so what is the definition of done? They're just going to be looking at you like, oh, what are you talking about? One way of asking them is that, what needs to happen in the system for you to say that your requirements have been met? I understand all the requirements you've given me. I've documented it, analyzed it, I've showed it to you, and you've confirmed to me that the requirements are correct. is there anything else that needs to happen for you to accept our deliverable, for you to say we've actually delivered? That is the definition of done. Even if there's nothing else outside of what they've told you, what they've told you, is there a particular way it needs to happen for them to say, yes, you've delivered, okay? And that's what we mean by the definition of done. Every time you document a user story and the acceptance criteria, remember we talked about user story and acceptance criteria, in that your document you've created, we need to understand the definition of done so that when we're done, we know we're done. And I know I repeated the word done, but that's what it's called anyway, and that's what you're going to call it, the definition of done. In the design, this is where you have developers and technical architects, you know, they're beginning to do a high-level design of what the system will look like. What are the user interfaces going to look like? The interaction in between systems, what will, you know, just more technical stuff that you as a BA need not worry about. However, it is still one of the stages of the software development lifecycle. Then we go into development. That is where the developers begin to actually build the system using the requirements that you gathered. In some situations, when developers build a system based on requirement, if they build it wrong, it's one of three things. The business gave incorrect requirements, or the business analyst misunderstood the requirements and documented it wrongly, or the developer misinterpreted the requirement and developed it wrong. Of course, the developer isn't going to always choose number three. As a matter of fact, oftentimes, the developer will state one or two. It's the business or the BA. As a BA, you're going to work closely with your developers to ensure that they understand the requirements that you've documented. Okay? Then there's testing. This is where the team, specifically the QA testers, will test what the developers have built to see if there's any defect in the system. For example, a new customer is required to register on the site. Their password must follow a complexity standard. They must use at least one symbol, at least a capital letter. The password must be at least 12 characters and all. The quality assurance testers will test that password entry. They'll put a password that is just small letters and see if the system would accept the registration. If the system accepts the registration, that requirement failed. They're going to create what we call a defect. A defect is a BA writes a user story. A QA will write a defect against the user story. If that user story fails while the QA is testing it, they will document a defect and they would assign it to the developer who developed that part of the system. Okay, sometimes they may assign it to the BA if it is determined that the requirement was incorrect. Okay, but that's testing at a high level. Now, there are different types of testing. There's what we call system testing, but there's another testing called user acceptance testing. Oftentimes, the business analyst is the one who performs the user acceptance testing. This is not a technical testing. It's a testing where, in some scenarios, the BA will walk the business through how the application behaves. For example, a new customer needs to register. The BA will maybe schedule a meeting, have a computer there, and log into the system and begin to show the business how a new customer will register. When a new customer registers, if the username and password meets the requirement, meets the standard, then the registration will go through. They would receive a confirmation email saying they've registered. In that confirmation email, they need to click confirm. The BA will basically walk them through all the different steps. Or the BA can document all the steps line by line, give it to the business, and tell them to basically perform all those tasks. And then the business will do it, go into the system, the BA may be watching, and if anything fails, they'll document it. It's called user acceptance testing because that is where the user is going to interface with the system and accept or reject it. They will reject it if they feel like the requirement wasn't met. Okay? Then we get to the point where we deploy. So let's say we do user acceptance testing, the business is happy with everything, there are no defects, and if there are any defects, we fixed it, we've gone back to show it to them, they're happy. We will then do what we call deployment. So what happens oftentimes is that you see that application on your phone that Samsung or Apple, did an update and it just popped up on your screen. Before it popped up on your screen, the developers that developed it, the QA people tested it, they showed it to the user group, wherever they're located, those ones get comfortable with it. It's all good, right? At that point where the QA is testing it, you as an end user, you're not seeing it. You didn't even know they were testing an update. All right. And that is because they were testing it in an environment that you do not even know exists. Oftentimes, a company they may have as many as 5 environments. They have staging, they have testing, they have UAT. Some companies have UAT. Again, environment just means a place where they will put that code, the code that the developers, what they built, that application they built, that update they coded, whatever it is, right? It's all code from a development standpoint. It's all programming language, right? From their own standpoint, it's all programming language. It is when it gets pushed out to you that you see all the pictures and you can interact with it. So all of that code, they put it in, let's say, the staging environment, okay? And in that staging environment, they can play with the code, they can tweak it, they can do whatever they need to do with it. Then from the staging environment, they move it to, say, for example, testing. And it is in that testing environment that QA would go oftentimes to test the application. So think of an environment like your phone. When it gets pushed to your phone, that means it is in production. Anything in production is something the end user can use. But production is not the first place they put the code. They would have moved it through many different environments just to make sure it passes really well before they push it to production where you see it. It's like a car. When Mercedes builds a car, when Boeing builds an airplane, they don't take it to United or Air Canada and say, start using it. No, they have different runways in different places. Sometimes the runways are even in different countries. They take the airplane there and they fly it. They don't take it to United or Air Canada until they are sure that this airplane has met the standard. So what they do in these other environments they're taking the airplane to is that they're trying to recreate real life scenario. What is the closest environment to what the airplane would end up in? They recreate those environments. They create a runway here. They create a runway there. You and I don't know about the runway. We don't even know where it's located. They take the airplane there. They fly it there. That's their staging environment. That's their testing environment, okay? When they feel like, okay, now this airplane is good, we've checked everything, it's good to go, then they send it to United, and then you buy a ticket, United puts you in the airplane and flies you. When United flew in that airplane, that was not the first time that airplane was flying. Even if United says this is the latest airplane in our fleet, it was delivered this morning. Usually, some other people would have checked that airplane in different environments. When it gets to United's runway, that is what we call production in IT. That is production, where the end user can use it. And that's where the concept of deployment comes from. Deploy means to, I was going to say deploy means to deploy, but I guess that would make a lot of sense, right? The way that in the army, for example, they deploy a soldier to Ukraine, right? That soldier wasn't just in their house eating burgers all day, and then they called them one day and said, you're flying to Ukraine. No, that soldier was in staging or was in testing, training every day. in a Ukraine-like situation, so that when they send that soldier to Ukraine, that soldier can perform in Ukraine. Okay, so again, that's the whole idea of deployment. You as a business analyst, what does deployment mean to you? All you need to care about is you need to know the different environments that your organization has. You need to know the environment you as a BA will play in, and you need to know the environment your end users will play in. You're not the one creating the environment. You're not the one maintaining the environment. You're not the one pushing code to the environment. But you need to know that these environments exist, and you need to know which environment you as a BA can go into and check the functionality of what has been built. Okay, and then we have maintenance, and that's where the application that has been built is maintained as needed or on a schedule. Okay, so let's talk about the methodologies. We talked about Agile a while back, right? Agile involves constant collaboration with stakeholders and continuous improvements. You know, we're creating iterations of the same functionality. Okay, in Agile, if your company uses Agile, right, your project will progress through a series of iterations, right? So you have like the sprint. Typically, sprint, again, is every 2 weeks. Sprint can be up to 4 weeks, but to be honest, I've never worked in a company where it was 4 weeks. It's usually 2. Again, this is just, let's quickly go over things we've talked about before. At the beginning of each sprint, the team decides on how much work it can complete during that sprint. Okay, all the user stories that have been cleaned up and groomed will be in the product backlog, and then for each sprint, the team will select the user stories they want to work on the next sprint, and those user stories they select will be moved into the sprint backlog. When we show you Jira, you see what I'm saying in action, where you can see all the user stories in a backlog, and then you keep moving stories from the product backlog into the sprint backlog. Only stories that will be worked in the next sprint are moved into that sprint. Every other story is left in the product backlog. Okay, so we've talked about moving stories for a sprint into the sprint backlog. You do a daily meeting. It's a brief one, lasts anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how big your team, your Scrum team is, and how complicated the issues are, right? Usually people stand in this meeting. People get too comfortable when they sit down. Because it's a short meeting, everybody would stand. And this meeting is where people talk about their progress, what they're doing, do they have any issues, do they need help with anything. Why are organizations going Agile? Okay, 4 things organizations are trying to move away from is the inability to react to change. So recall when we talked about waterfall, right? In waterfall, you finish the entire software development life cycle before you push the product to market. In Agile, we do not do that. We build, you know, what can we build that would work? What is a standalone we can build that would work, that we can give to the client while we continue to build other things? Remember when we talked about increment, right? We build a portion. We know this project is going to take us 2 years, but in the first quarter of the first year, we can build this many functionalities, and the business can continue using those while we build the next set of functionalities in the next quarter. Okay, in waterfall, you know, there was a reduced ability to react to change. Let's say we're building, and all of a sudden there's a new law that comes out, and for regulatory reasons, we need to change what we're doing. Waterfall does not really give room for that, because in waterfall, you've planned to do everything. You've not made room to be able to push things to market faster. Okay? Lack of adaptability and flexibility, which ties into the first point. That's why companies are moving away from waterfall and going to Agile. Inability to see early results. Someone gives you a requirement in January of 2021. You're not showing them functionality till July of 2022. By then, they can't even remember what requirement they gave you in January. And that requirement might have changed. The requirement might even be redundant now. But because you've been so busy developing it, that by the time you bring it up, they're like, oh no, we moved on. That's not even a requirement anymore. A lot of money was going down the drain. Okay. Lastly, solutions become outdated before they are delivered. I guess I just spoke to that already. So these are some of the reasons why companies are going to, choosing to go agile and moving away from the waterfall, type of development. So characteristics of Scrum. Scrum is lightweight, right? What can we build in 2 weeks? It is lightweight. It can be implemented where faster delivery is required, right? So there's a functionality, we need this 25 functionalities, and this is the sequence in which we need them. We've prioritized them, right? And we can build and push to market faster. Every time I say push to market, I just mean deliver the functionality to your end users. The software development lifecycle is also shorter when you're doing Agile. Okay. Now, these 4 principles of Agile that we're going to talk about, very key. And just to the point where you need to understand it. Again, nobody's going to say, oh, define the principles of Agile methodology. First is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. In Agile, as a BA in an Agile environment, you're going to focus on people, your stakeholders. You're going to prioritize them. You're going to make them feel like kings and queens, because if you keep them happy, they'll make your life easy. You're going to interact with them consistently. Okay, you will use tools and processes, no doubt, but you're not going to put tools and processes over people. Okay, working software over comprehensive documentation. So in the days of waterfall, I mean, the company's still using waterfall most likely, but when waterfall was mainstream, that is when you see business requirement documents or like requirements documents in general over 100 pages. Companies are not doing that anymore. Okay, right now we care about a software that's working, not so much how huge your documentation is. A lot of the time anyway, that documentation is outdated. Imagine how long it would take somebody to write over 100 pages of requirements. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. You are constantly collaborating with your stakeholders. Sometimes your stakeholders are external as well, right? The external, maybe an auditor, the external. You collaborate with them consistently, and not just you, the project manager, the project sponsor as well. When we talk about Agile methodology here, it's not just from a BA standpoint, from the standpoint of most people involved in the Agile project, right? In the project using Agile methodology. And you respond to change over following a plan. What's happening today in our industry? What's happening today in our company? Your company, everything was running smooth. It's a unionized environment, and then employees went on strike. You can't continue business as normal. It doesn't matter if it's a $10 million project and you're midway. You may need to quickly make a change. And by you, I mean the organization, right? And Agile gives room for that. Agile doesn't mean you change things anyhow. We feel like changing it today, we're going to change it. No. But when we have a valid reason to change, Agile accommodates that change. Okay. What is the role of a BA in Agile? A business analyst interacts with clients or the business to understand their needs. This is often called requirements gathering. The BA will create user stories with relevant acceptance criteria. My recommendation is when you go back to listen to the videos, and I think that it would be in lessons 1 to 3 that I shared with you. Story past. Okay, what needs to, so if you recall the acceptance criteria, see if I can remember. Can everybody hear me? I'm getting a message. My internet connection is iffy. Can you hear me?
You were kind of in and out. But
oh, sorry. Oh, so it's better now. Can you hear me?
You're still breaking up a little bit.
Hi guys, let's just hold a bit just so we can sort out the, just see if okay. Are you good now, Abiola? Can you hear me now? Is it better? It sounds a lot better. Oh, okay. What was the last clear thing you heard? I just want to make sure you didn't miss anything. Where did I start breaking up?
I think it's create user story.
Ah, okay. So that wasn't too far back. Okay. So we were talking about the roles of a BA in Agile. Okay. So we talked about the fact that the BA interacts with the client and business to understand their needs, right? So requirement gathering. Your goal here is really to understand what does the business need in the future state, okay? The BA creates user stories and acceptance criteria. So I think I was saying that I'd recommend, if you're going back to watch the videos, or even if you look at lessons 1 to 3, which I believe everybody should have by now, look at the slides that talk about acceptance criteria. But when you write a user story, right, as a new user, I need to be able to register so that, whatever the benefit is, right? You typically would have acceptance criteria listed. Every user story should have its own acceptance criteria, okay? Just like the name states, right? What is the criteria for me to accept what you're delivering to me? What should have been built in the system for me to say, okay, new user registration passed? Acceptance criteria is very key. It is very key. A user story should not stand by itself alone. You need to have the acceptance criteria that goes with that user story. Okay, a BA confirms that the requirements are in line with business rules. So let's pause for a second. What do we mean here? Business rule. So a business rule are the conditions that guides a process. So an example would be that, and I'm making this up, right? An example is that you need to be at least 18 to be able to ride a train, to be able to get on a train. Of course, that's not true, right? Even children can get on a train. But I'm just giving that as an example. You need to be at least 18 to be able to ride on a train. Or you need to be at least 18 to be able to buy a train ticket. Somebody who's over 18 can buy the ticket and give it to a younger person, but for you to be able to make the purchase, you need to be at least 18. When you gather requirement from the end user, let's say that you work with, in British Columbia, we call them TransLink. That's like the government train service, right? So depending on the state or province where you live, whatever your version is, right? Let's say they hire you as a BA and now you're building this new system. And one of the requirements is that people need to be able to buy a train ticket. So they give you that requirement and you document it. As a rider, I need to be able to buy a train ticket. Well, the truth is that, but you need to be at least 18 to buy a train ticket. So your requirement has to be in line with the business rule. There is a rule in the business that says that people need to be at least 18 to buy a train ticket. When you write your requirement, always have it at the back of your mind. Is there a rule that must be obeyed in implementing this user story? You're not going to know it on your own. So sometimes, or almost always, you have to ask for you to know. Otherwise, if you don't include that business rule in your documentation and you just say, as a rider, I need to be able to buy a train ticket, you give it to developer. Developer will build it that a rider needs to be able to buy a train ticket, and QA will test it and QA will say it passed. It failed. It didn't pass. The incomplete requirement is what passed. As a matter of fact, your requirement is complete, but you did not factor in the business rule. Okay? Another business rule that comes to mind is, you know how if you buy a ticket before 8 a.m., it's 20% cheaper than if you buy it after 10 a.m. I hope I didn't say 10 p.m. So if you buy your train ticket before 10 a.m., it's 20% cheaper. If you buy between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., then you pay the full price. If you're over 85, you ride the train free. If you're buying for more than 2 zones, you get a discount. If you're buying for the week, it's cheaper than if you're buying for a day. Okay? The requirement is buy train tickets. The business rules are some of those things that I've shared with you. The requirement is that people need to be able to buy a train ticket. The point I'm trying to make here is that knowing the requirements is a big part of what you're going to do. Knowing the business rule and documenting it is also very important. So I hope that that was clear enough. Okay, the BA would save the requirements in the backlog, in the product backlog. The BA grooms the product backlog. If you're on a project that has a product owner, the product owner will prioritize the backlog and then hand it over to the BA to groom. What does it mean to prioritize? As a BA, over the last 3 months, you've been meeting with stakeholders, you've been gathering requirements, and you've been documenting it. Now you have a total of 150 user stories. How do we know how to order it? Do you just dump 150 in there and then expect that as we plan for Scrum, the entire team will look through 150 to select the 5 next important ones? That would be really tedious, right? So for projects that have a product owner, the product owner often would be the one to prioritize the backlog. You know, what needs to come first? What is more important to the business? Now, if there's no product owner on the team, it may fall to you as the BA to do the prioritization because you'd be the closest to the requirement. Anyway, at that point, you're the one who gathered it. You're the one who talked to the business about it. Okay, and the BA supports the development team. You know, developers have a question about a requirement, they don't quite understand it. The BA would explain it to them. QA, they're testing, and they can think of a scenario that hasn't been documented. They don't know if it's a valid scenario or not. They may call the BA and they would ask you questions. That happens a lot. As a matter of fact, usually when you're done gathering requirements as a BA, let's say that during the period where you're doing a lot of requirement gathering, about 70% of your time may be spent on requirement gathering, but you get to a point where you've gathered most of the requirements and now the team is just building, right? And that's where you're going to be supporting them a lot, answering their questions and all of that. So let's take a quick look at waterfall again, okay? In waterfall, each phase must be completed in its entirety before the next phase can begin. Okay, and that's why typically waterfall projects are long, because they do the end-to-end before they move on to something else. At the end of a phase, they do a review to determine if the project is on the right path and whether to continue on or discard the project. Maybe they've been building for a year and a half, and then new laws have been passed for the industry you belong in, and what you're building is no longer relevant. At that point, they're just going to stop the project, right? It doesn't matter how much money they've spent. Waterfall works better for projects that are really small and the requirements are well known, like you know all the requirements up front. That's where waterfall really works. However, in real life, most projects that use waterfall, they're the really long, big projects, and that's where companies run into problems. Adjusting scope during the life cycle can kill a project when you're doing waterfall because they haven't really built all those contingencies into it. Unlike in Agile, even Agile doesn't like it when you change scope all the time. But in Agile, right, if there's a valid reason to change scope, it's easier to change it and keep going because from the get-go, you were building in stages. You were not building the whole thing at once. Okay, you were not building the entire thing at once. You were building it in sections. So let's say you're going to build 20 sections eventually. And while you're building section 3, you realize that based on a new law, you need to change something in section 17. The good thing is you haven't even started it anyway. So you can go ahead and make that change. And even if you needed to change something in section 1, right? You're close enough to section 1 to go make that change. in waterfall, you're not building in sections. So let's say you're building the entire foundation of the estate first, and then you build the next level on top of it, right? And so let's say that now you're done building the entire foundation. They say, oh, there's a fault in one part of the foundation. It's in a part where you're going to have to pull out everything and rebuild it again. And that's where companies found, okay, we're wasting a lot of money doing it this way. Let's build it incrementally using Agile. In waterfall, no working software is produced until late during the life cycle of the project. And there is a high amount of risk and uncertainty with waterfall. So this picture just shows what we're talking about with waterfall. So you do the requirements, you finish gathering all the requirements before you start design, before you start implementation, and then verification and maintenance. Whereas in Agile, you gather some of the requirements, you give it to the designers, they start working. While they're working, you're gathering the next set of requirements. Okay, and you have that cadence, you know, it keeps going like in a circle. Okay. So that is lesson 4. I'll take questions. We're going to do some of lesson 5 because we're doing well with time. If you have any questions about what we've just talked about, please raise your hands. Shola, go ahead, please.
Okay. Just before Shola, Abiola, I'm going to paste one of the question in the chat, right? But Shola can go ahead just so we don't have to scroll up to search for it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Abiola. You kind of answered my question towards the end of the presentation. I was going to ask if you think that there are actually projects that waterfall actually would be the suitable method to use, but I think you talked about that. So I'm just going to rephrase around there. I've noticed that most BAs recently would clearly state, maybe on their resume, that they are Agile specialists or their focus is on Agile. So my question is for newbies, would that not be like limiting our chances if we probably stated on the resume that Agile focus because that's the in thing now, or would you say keep it open?
Good question. So this is how I want to spin the question back to you. If there are 20 jobs out in the market and 19 of them are looking for Agile, what would you put on your resume?
Absolutely, 100% Agile.
Exactly. So most employers out there, again, I said most, I didn't say all, most of them are following Agile methodology. My recommendation would be to have both in your resume, but make the Agile louder. As a matter of fact, because you're going to tailor your resume to the job you're applying for, right? What is the job looking for? That's what should be on your resume. Does that make sense, Shola?
100%. Thank you, Abiola.
Okay. Justina?
Yes, thank you, Abiola. So I just want to clarify, I'm not sure if I heard correctly. When we were talking about testing, did you mention system testing? Or I think I heard system testing. I just want to be sure.
I did. So I was talking, well, I did, but not in the context of what a BA will do, right? So there's like functional testing, there's system integration testing, there's user acceptance testing, many different types of testing that's done, right? And then I focused on UAT for a bit, saying that's what a BA would do. Did I answer your question just now? Like, what's your real question?
Yeah, so my question is, so a BA would focus solely on user acceptance testing?
Yeah, so user acceptance testing is a big part of the testing you do. Sometimes if they're short-staffed, they would ask you to help with functional testing. It's a terrible idea, but they may ask you to do it. And I'll tell you why it's a terrible idea. A BA is the one who documented the requirement. You build it and you give it to the BA to test. If the BA made a mistake in the requirement, the BA will not catch it in testing. You need somebody who did not work on the requirement to test it. So typically what happens is once they're done building, the developers that built it will first test it before they give it to QA. Even though they tested it and in their mind it passed, when they give it to QA, they are merciless. I'm not joking. By the time QA is done testing, when they create the list of defects, even you as a BA, you begin to question yourself. And this is after the developer tested and thought it passed. One of the things QA have, one of the things they have going for them is that this requirement is net new to them. It's almost like when you did your presentation, you guys put a lot of effort into the presentation. I hadn't seen it until you delivered it. And when you delivered it to me, I could catch all the little things. Trust me, if I was a member of your team, I may not have caught it. So it's always good to have fresh eyes looking at it. And so QA, they're always looking at things with fresh eyes and they catch a lot of things. And that's why it's a bad idea to give it to the BA to test. Because the BA, number one, a BA isn't trained to do that. Secondly, the BA is the one who documented the requirements, right? So if they keep asking you to do functional testing, my recommendation, push back. And I'll tell you why. If you don't push back and you go ahead and do the testing, and you say, oh, yes, I tested it and it passed. If a problem happens in the future, that requirement has your name on it. You're the one who tested it and said it passed. Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
Now, because you're not trained to do testing, right? And even if you're trained to do testing, they really should just let you focus on BA and focus on the business, right? So push back diplomatically, but if there's no way out, let them give you everything you need. They should write the test case and give it to you. I'll show you a sample of a test case as they progress in the training, right? The test case will basically list everything that you need to do and click on. And then you click on all of that and you record the result. Bottom line is that functional testing should not sit with a BA. If anything, it should be user acceptance testing, where you think of yourself as a user and you go into the system and you try to use the system and then you say, did it pass, did it fail? And then the next step is you go to the business and you demo it in front of them, or you give them access to the system and tell them, go into the system and follow these different steps that I'm going to give to you and tell me, did it pass, did it fail? It's a very light type of testing. Okay?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. John. John, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abiola. And I've been having a good time listening to what you're doing, and I must appreciate what you're doing. My question or my area of interest has to do with the role of the product owner and that of a BA in the agile environment. I really give a hard thought on who is fully responsible for the user stories in the between the product owner and the BA in an agile environment. In my opinion, it looks as if the BA is usually not very relevant in the agile environment because the product owner is always taking control of the user stories and the prioritization of the stories. So I don't know if you can help me out and clarify. And let me also understand the grooming bit of the user stories. Is it that the BA prepared the user stories for the product owner to use, or what? Because I'm getting a bit confused about it.
Yeah, okay. So those are very good questions, right? Let's talk a bit about the role of a BA and the role of a product owner. First thing I should mention is most projects do not even have a product owner. You're going to wear both hats, be a product owner. The product owner is responsible for the product. That end product that will be delivered, the product owner is responsible for it. The BA is responsible for the requirements that will be used to build the product. The product owner does not write requirement. The product owner does not change requirement. The product owner does not talk to the stakeholders to get requirement. But the product owner, just like the name sounds, in actual fact, they don't own the product, but they know the product really well. So we're trying to build an application. The BA is going to gather requirements and maintain the requirement that will be used to build the product. The product owner is the one who knows the product, like they can picture the product in their head. They know the business well enough. Remember that as a BA, they may hire you into a company where the first time you're learning about what they do in the company is on day one that they hired you. How will you know the product? There's no way you can know the product. Even if you begin to learn a bit every day, it will take you a long time to know the product. But you can know the requirement. The requirement are the little bits and pieces that, when put together, makes the product. But the product owner has that higher level knowledge, that vision of what the product looks like. Again, only where they actually have a product owner. Of all the projects that I've worked on, only one of them has had a product owner, just FYI. So don't think you get on the job and there'll be product owner waiting there for you. That often is not what happens, right? So anyway, back to your point, the BA is so relevant that if the BA wasn't working, the product owner would be useless, really. The BA is the one who brings the requirement. If there's no requirement, what is the product owner even looking at? What are they going to talk about? So the product owner, to start with, is not more important than anybody in the development team. They're not. The only difference is that because they know the product really well, they can help with the prioritization. Now, like I said earlier, now you have a total of 100 user stories. How do we know which user story should be number 2? How do we know which one should be 99? The BA is going to have an idea because you've been engaging with the stakeholders and they've impressed it upon you what is more important, right? But oftentimes where there's a product owner, they know without you bugging the business for prioritization, the product owner, they've been close enough to the business. Sometimes the product owner actually even comes from the business. So they know that solution really well. But it doesn't erode the relevance of a BA. A BA, in fact, a project would succeed to a very large extent on the strength of the BA. Because if a BA documents rubbish requirement, like terrible requirements, right, and developers build it, that project is going to fail. A BA is very relevant. And like I said, oftentimes it will just be you. There would not even be a product owner. So there may or may not be a product owner. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. I was actually I was getting to the conclusion that usually, in practical times, the BA really carries the heart of the product owner most times, because looking at it from the micro point of view of the project, it's the BA that is actually is the one providing the requirement and all that. I get what you're saying, and I can relate, and I can begin to feel that the business, the BA, it takes a lot of the functions of the product owner. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so that was John. Shola, you still have your hand raised. Did you have another question?
No, this is second Shola. There are two Sholas in this class.
Yeah, okay. Second Shola, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So it's about business rules that you mentioned earlier when we were talking about acceptance criteria and the user stories. Mm-hmm. So is the business going to provide like a document for the BA that has the business rules, so that the BA can be guided by when writing the user stories, can be guided by what they should look out for, or stuff like that? Or is this something that the BA has to have knowledge of, so that the user stories will not contradict any business rule while writing user stories?
Yeah, good question. They may not. It is your duty as a BA to find out. They may tell you, it may occur to them to tell you, they may not know to tell you. So my recommendation would be, as you're gathering the requirements, look for ways And I think it will help once we get into requirement gathering techniques, right? But look for ways of probing to find out this requirement you've given me. Are there any rules guiding it? Are there conditions within which this requirement must be met? And outside of the conditions, the requirement should not be met. Okay? Are there conditions guiding this function you've asked for? That's one of the ways of asking, but they may tell you, they may not. It may not even occur to them to tell you, is what I'm trying to tell you. It may not occur to them to share that information with you. Never trust that the business is telling you everything you need to know. Not because they don't want to share it with you. I mean, sometimes if it's a business that wants the project to fail, they may deliberately not share it with you, but oftentimes it's because it hasn't occurred to them to actually share it with you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Manuel.
Yeah, hi, Abiola, thank you very much. So I think I have two questions, but just to start with, you talked about the functional testing and what have you. So based on the, I think someone basically talked about that as well, and I was just trying to try to better understand exactly, in terms of testing. And I do understand that when it comes to testing as well, the UAT, functional testing, regression testing, and what have you, right? But again, for BA to be able to do the UAT, right? But I know that sometimes as well, there are functional users. These are users that are actually going to be using the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So during the UAT, are they not involved as well with the BA doing the UAT testing?
So the users doing the UAT, the users that the BA is working with, doing the UAT with, they are the functional users of the system, but you're not going to use them to do functional testing. It is not their job to go see if the functionality is working properly. Imagine if every time Samsung or Apple wanted to push out a notification to you, they send it to you. You are the user, right? They send it to you and say, test it first. Did it break your system? Did it introduce a bug? Did your phone crash? If they try it, are you not going to just move away from them? Even though you're the end user. They don't even bring UAT to you. They have people they take their UAT to. People who are like end users, but you don't even know about it. By the time they push it to you, it is crisp, ready to go. So yes, the people that the BA will work with in UAT, they are the functional users of the system, but you should not use them as part of your testing team. I've seen projects where they've tried to do it. Maybe they don't have enough time to test or they don't have enough testers. When companies do that, they're cutting corners. You should not use your end user to test if new user registration is working. No. When you're showing it to them in UAT, you've confirmed with your team that it's working. You know for sure it's working. When you're showing it to the business in UAT, it's just to get some of their feedback. Do they like the sequence of effect? Do they like where the field of username is? That's the level of conversation. You're not trying to get them to test it to see, did he fail? Did he pass? If you do that, trust me, the next meeting you're booking with them, they're declining it. Because testing is not what they hired them for. The manager of accounting, that's not his job, right? Testing a system can take months. So UAT is what at the level where you want to engage them. Even though you're right, they are the functional users of the system, but you don't do functional testing with them.
Yeah, I think I was coming from the what's it called? Based on my experience, where we actually practice the waterfall, and again, the functional user basically did the testing, right? So I think that was what was basically running through my mind and all that. So
I see.
Anyway,
okay. Yeah. Fair enough. And like I said, right, it does happen. I'm on a project right now where even the project team, there's bickering among the project team because they have only one person doing testing. And she said there's no way she can do testing, functional testing and UAT in the time they've given her. So what is she doing? She's taking the function, she's called the UAT, but during that UAT, she's going to do functional testing. And we're all like, okay, no, we really shouldn't be doing that, but it is what it is, right? So I understand that you've experienced it before. I'm currently experiencing it, but it is not the right way to do it. Yeah.
Thank you. And secondly, sorry, I think when we're talking about the user stories as well, and it's most exactly, meets the acceptance criteria. So I'm not sure if we ever talked about the characteristics of acceptance and criteria.
So we talked about it. I think it was in lesson 2.
Okay, sure. I just want to confirm, actually.
Yeah, we did talk about it. Take a look at the PowerPoint. As a matter of fact, I put examples in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. But we can always revisit it later if you have more information, if you need more information about it, right? Okay. So which Shola has his hand raised? Because both Sholas have spoken.
Sorry, it's the same Shola. Just to follow up on what Emmanuel just asked. Sorry.
Okay.
When you were mentioning about UAT, are you saying that, okay, so UAT is not done by the users or can be done by subsets of the users? Is that I want to be sure.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, UAT should be done by a subset of the users. Typically, it wouldn't be your entire user population. It would be, the users that you gather the requirements from are typically the ones that you take the UAT back to.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Justina?
Hi, Abiola. I'm so sorry. I think I confused myself again. I tend to do that every time.
It's okay.
This is regarding the UAT. Okay, so remember how you told us that with Agile, you get your business requirements and then you give part of it to the development team and then you go back and start gathering some more for the next phase. So speaking of UAT, so let's say for the first phase you give the developers and they're done. Is that where you initiate the UAT, or is UAT for when everything has been done? Then you do the UAT, or is it in stages when the development team finishes the first stage and then you do a UAT to make sure the first stage is perfect or good to go, or do we just wait for everything for the UAT?
Yeah, so good question. First, I wanted to correct something. You said that I said you'd give the business requirement to the developers. No, we don't give business requirement to developers. We give them the functional requirement. Business requirement is high level. It's at the organization. In the next 5 years, we want to make $20 million annually. Developers could care less if you made $20 million or just $20. They don't care because they can't code that. What we're going to give to them is the actual functional requirement. Okay. So just to get that out of the way, back to your question, can we do UAT in stages or we wait till the end?
Yes, that's my question.
Oftentimes, UAT is, companies do it at the end. Let's say it is a 6-month project or a 1-year project, right? They do it to the end because they do it at the end because they want to show the full user experience. But let's say that they're building in iterations that can stand alone. So let's say we have in this iteration, we covered 3 sprints, right? And in the 3 sprints, we covered user registration, we covered return customer logging in, and we covered one other thing, right? These are things we can actually demo to the business. Sometimes we demo it and we get them to interact with the system. It's some form of UAT as well, okay? And other times we wait till the end. But remember that in Agile, because we always want to get constant feedback, so sometimes even though we don't do UAT consistently, we wait till the end, we're still going to do demos. We're going to demo the product to them and get feedback, demo and get feedback, demo and get feedback, right? And then save UAT till the end. But to answer your question, it can work both ways. It just depends on what has the project manager planned. Because the project manager should have built it into the project plan, how he wants UAT to play out. And that's what you are going to follow. Okay. Does that help, Justina?
Yes, it does. So my second question is, my apologies, class. So because you mentioned, okay, so basically turn down functional testing diplomatically. But if it happens, then, the gods be with you. Exactly. My question is, what is could you just give us the major difference between the user accept UAT and functional testing, just in case, the job we get, say the BA is in charge of functional, is it just majorly IT for functional testing? How different, how should we be? Yeah.
So in functional testing, right, one of the goals of functional testing, at least QAs like to say it, is they want to break the system. So you have a requirement that a new user needs to be able to register. Part of the registration is they need to enter their email. Email has to be unique. So one email cannot be used for multiple registrations. What will QA do? QA will try to start a new registration. They'll use one email, the system accepts it. Then they'll go back and try to do another registration and use the same email. And they want to see if the system would accept it, right? If the system accepts it, then it failed. Or that email would be, let's say, abiola.bakare@gmail.com, right? And then they will try abiola.bakare@yahoo.com to see if the system will be deceived. In functional testing, you're going to try many different things and try to break the system, try to confuse it. An end user does not have time for that. So functional testing is not just going in and playing nice with the system. If you see the document that QA creates, it's pages and pages and pages about they want to break the system. That's what they hire them for. The $90 per hour they're paying them is to break the system. That's their job. End users don't have time for that. In user acceptance testing, you're going to tell them how the system works, and you're going to watch them use the system the way it should work. They may try a few scenarios here and there to see if the system will misbehave, but their goal is not to break the system. Their goal is to say, do I like what they've built? User acceptance testing, the type of testing that will make a user accept what you built.
So in that way, functional testing should be done before UAT.
Please, if functional testing is not done, do not do UAT. Again, I say, do not do it. It doesn't matter the pressure they put you on. If they put you under pressure, escalate it. If they've not tested the system, do not show it to the end user.
Okay.
When end users begin to doubt the system because they've had negative experience with it, many projects have failed because of due to lack of end user buy-in. They've lost confidence in the system. One of the fastest ways for end users to lose confidence in the system is if it wasn't tested, all the defects were not found and fixed, and then the BA or somebody took the system and put it in front of the end user. So you're right. Functional testing it is a must. It must occur before you do UAT. But like, I think it was Shola who mentioned, or somebody mentioned how they did the functional testing in front of the end user. It shouldn't be that way. Okay?
Wow, thank you so much, Abiola.
Yeah.
There's still one question in the chat.
Oh, in the chat, okay. Okay, let me go to the questions.
It's from Titi, but I think her hand is raised, so I don't know.
Titi, we want to hear your voice. Do you not want to speak to us?
Hi, Abiola. Of course, I'd love to speak to you.
Good.
I had some kind of noise at the background. I don't want to derail the class. That's why. Okay. So thank you once again. This is my first time of attending this class, so but it's okay. Let's not go into that. You mentioned, I dropped the question in the chat. I'll just read it out quickly. You mentioned something very important a few minutes ago about the developers understanding thoroughly what the business analysts wants to be done. Now I know it is, I can call it functional requirement, right?
So the definition of done is typically captured in the acceptance criteria, right? So when you remember in Agile, we write user stories. That's how we try to explain the requirements. The business tells us like a story. We write it in user story form. As a new user, I need to be able to register so that I can return to the system. And then we may have 5 acceptance criteria in there. Yeah. Let's say a developer builds ability to register. However, the 5 acceptance criteria we wrote, they didn't build it. For example, email has to be unique, email address has to be unique. Password must be at least 12 characters, must include a capital letter and this and that. Developer just builds a new person registering, but they didn't build based on the acceptance criteria. That user story is not done. So the definition of done, you get it from the business. They are the ones that have asked you to build something. So they are the ones who will tell you when it's done. That definition of done, you capture it in your requirement that you're passing across to the developers. They cannot build 2 out of 5 acceptance criteria and say, manage it, at least we tried. No, all 5 of them have to be built for us to say this requirement is done. Titi, does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It does? Okay, fantastic. Okay, since I'm already reading these questions here, I'm just going to quickly, someone said, hi, Titi and Shola, do you mind waiting for Q&A? Okay. Okay, I'm breaking here. Thank you guys for letting me know. Hi, Abiola, thank you very much for all you do. You mentioned something very important minutes ago about developers understanding thoroughly what the BA wants to be done.
That's Titi's question.
Oh, that was Titi's question. Okay, and it's not the BA who wants it to be done. I mean, the BA wants it to be done, but that definition of done comes from the business, right? Manuel said, just check, but I was actually looking for the user story meeting with invest criteria. Manuel, I'll need you to tell me a bit more about your comment here.
All right, yeah, thanks. So basically, when I went through the slide, I was just trying to look for that when you talked about the user stories and all that as well. So, when writing the user stories, I was just trying to better understand that, yeah, there must be some kind of acceptance criteria in there, right?
Yeah.
And my understanding as well was that, is that while writing it as well, this invest criteria, meaning, the story must be independent, right? Negotiable, valuable, right? Estimable kind of, and, it should be small and also testable kind of. So that's what I was just basically looking for, when I asked that question as well.
I see. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So Valerie, your hand was raised. I noticed it, and now it's no longer raised. We still want to hear that question. Do we still have?
Sorry, you've answered my question. It was at the point when you were saying that I'm trying to remember what was said, that okay, like you're gathering your when you're doing your requirement gathering, and then that you need to ask some people there. That was after Shola asked if there was any document that was going to give you like an information of how to go about it. So my question was, okay, even if you go about asking these people and they ended up giving you this information, how sure are you that they're giving you the correct information? That was my question, but I think you later touched it.
Yeah, okay. And that's a very good question. You can only be as sure as, because when they give you all that information and you document it in an email, put in an email and say, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your help, spending time telling me about all these requirements. Can you please take a look at it and verify that these requirements are complete and da-da-da-da-da. Let them respond to that email saying it is complete. You did your due diligence. After all, it's not like you can go into their mind and get the information from there. You can only press and push and ask in many different ways. My recommendation as a BA, never ask a question in one way and be done. Ask in 3 different ways so you can get all that information, but that's all you can do. Then document it and put it back in front of them. Let them read it. Oftentimes when they read it, they'll see what they've missed. And then they'll say, oh, and this and that and all of that. Then you update it again and you send it back to them. By the time you've done that like 3 times, usually you would not have missed anything. But how can you be sure? Well, you can only be sure based on your meetings with them and trust that they're giving you the right information. Usually, one thing I do is I use multiple stakeholders as well. That way there's a check and balance. In case somebody's forgetting, the other person would remember. I use that approach and it does work for me. So I'd recommend that you try that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Joke.
Thanks again, Abiola, for your time. My question is just briefly on functional testing versus UAT. So since you can't perform UAT without functional testing, as a BA, do you get like an official confirmation that functional testing is complete? What do they like? Do you ask and then do they give you like an official confirmation that it's complete?
Okay, good question. You really shouldn't be asking because you're a part of the development team. You are a part of the Scrum. You should know what the developers are working on and what QA is working on. You will know when QA has passed it. In fact, QA is probably going to fail many of the stories anyway. When they fail it, it will go back to the developer. Most times it will go back to you, the BA, because they need more clarification on it. But you're going to be aware.
Okay.
Right? Because you're part of that daily Scrum where they're talking, the developer is going to say, oh, today I'm going to be building new user login. And QA will be like, oh, today I'm going to be testing this. And you can mentally follow what each person is working on. And if there's a point at which you're not sure, you're just going to ask them. Or you can go back into your tracking tool, be it Jira or whatever it is, and look at it. You'll be able to tell this story has been tested, it passed. This one was tested, it failed, we've pushed it back. Okay. So you're going to be aware because your team is the one managing all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Titi?
Yes, please, Abiola, sorry. Can you please talk more about grooming? I'd like to know, is grooming what the BA is meant to do to make the requirements presentable to the developers? I'm just trying to connect.
Yeah, good question. So grooming is really just cleaning up your user story. So let's say that you've documented the requirements, you've checked with the business is all good, and you put it in Jira. And then when the team is looking at it and analyzing it, they begin to interpret it in ways that even you hadn't thought about. It begins to give you ideas. You may need to go back and edit the way that you wrote it. For example, you write a requirement. That requirement, you've not included a business rule. Because developers are very analytical, they begin to break it and begin to say, if we build it this way, this is what will happen. Is that the result you're looking for? And be like, no. That's not the result we're looking for. They'll be like, but the way you've written it, that's the interpretation. And you'll be like, oh, that's true. I didn't think of what you said before. And then you edit it. If you don't know enough to be able to edit it, you may take it back to the business for clarification. When you get that clarification, when you go back and you're editing the user story to make it clearer, you're grooming it. You're grooming the user story, like you're grooming flour, you're cutting away all the excesses that are not needed, right? You're giving it more meaning. You're making it clearer. That is grooming. When a BA documents a requirement, even when you put it in Jira, as long as that requirement has not been built, it may not be in the final state. You may still need to go back in and do more work on the requirement, massage it, edit it, add more context, add more clarification. All of that is called grooming. Titi, does that make sense?
Yes.
It does? Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Right. This is Oyin. I was just wondering, because it just seems like gathering requirements is going to be basically like 70% of what the BA is going to be doing. Is there going to be like an exercise where we're able to practice this and just see how we're able to groom ourselves, just to see how well we can write user stories and
there will
just worrying about. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
There will be, and at that point, everybody's going to be talking. As a matter of fact, so there's going to be the BAs and the stakeholders will be in this class, right? And we're going to gather the requirements live.
Awesome.
Okay. Exciting times ahead. Okay. Do we have any other questions? We're almost at time here. Any other questions? We can take one more.
Abiola, sorry, I'd like to say this. I listened to your last cohort's videos and it helped me in getting a senior BA role. And that's why I'm here right now.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations, Titi.
Congratulations, Titi. I'm very happy to hear that. So people, I hope you're encouraged. Titi watched the videos. She didn't even sit in class. She watched it, just the videos, and she's working as a senior BA. If there's any iota of doubt in your mind, don't even listen to me because it may be like, yeah. Abiola has been doing it for a while. She's making it sound easy. Titi, can you just talk to us for a minute? I just want everybody to hear from you.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm in developers. I'm coming directly from developers training right now. So, and I've been with Baba Tokwe for quite a number of months now, roughly 8 months. I was in maternity before I decided to, upskill and change my career path and everything. So I was a little bit confused. I didn't know what I really want to do. But then developers program came and I decided to join them, and that was last cohort. Then I kept at it till now. This new cohort, I made up my mind to go back to my developers. JJ, I'm still learning, finding my feet and everything. But then somebody just talked to me, in fact, Babs Kensky to be precise, said, well, why don't you, I think you might be good in this area because it's not as if I like to talk all the time, but if there's need to talk, I think you might really do well. And I said, oh, really? Okay, no problem. We have access because it's, of course, it's premium. We have access to BA videos. So I just started with all the videos that we have on file, and I watched it. I started applying to senior to Salesforce business analyst positions while I was still, with doing my developers, and I got like a couple of invitations. It wasn't that easy because I fumbled here and there, but out of all the other applications that I've been doing, this is the third BA opportunity, and it just came through easy like that because of Abiola's sweet voice that I'm used to bringing in my head during the interviews. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. We've not met before. This is my first time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Titi. That's good news to my ears, and I hope it's good news to everybody's ears. I keep saying, people, it is doable, absolutely doable. In the next 1 month, 2 weeks to 1 month, where we're wrapping up things, doing interviews, you'll be amazed at how the opportunities would come. I just need you to believe it. I believe it with you. And Titi is not the first person reaching out to me on LinkedIn and saying, oh, Abiola, I just watched your video and I'm working as a BA. Right? And it's joint efforts. It's not like, oh yeah, maybe the teaching is decent, right? But people went all in, and that's all I'm asking of you. I won't take much of your time. Congratulations again, Titi. We're happy to have you here. And I hope that I'm able to help you even now that you're on the job, that my teaching will further help you. And, I hope everybody's encouraged. Have a good night, everybody. I look forward to connecting with you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abiola.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Titi.